Hey there. I guess I always say, hey folks, so I should throw that in. Hey folks. This week, we're thinking about Bill Moyers and Lady Bird Johnson. To some of you, those names may instantaneously ring a bell, and you say, oh yes, I know who they are. Others of you will say, what? I don't know who that is. Bill Moyers died this week. Bill Moyers was affiliated with CBS, NBC, and PBS over a 40-year career in broadcast journalism. I think of him as somebody who brought dignity and a respectful softness to journalism. And that's a word, we think of hard journalism, but he brought a gentility to journalism that was quite nice. He was also an ordained Baptist minister. Don't know if you knew that. And you say, well, what's that got to do with Lady Bird Johnson? Well, actually, we're going to talk a lot more about Lady Bird Johnson than we are Bill Moyers. Bill Moyers was on the plane when Lyndon Baines Johnson took the oath of office to become the President of the United States. You've seen the famous picture, and there's Vice President Johnson being sworn in, his wife Lady Bird standing by his side. But you can look this up. Way back in the corner, there's a dark-haired man, dark suit, white shirt, and it's Bill Moyers. He became the White House press secretary for President Johnson, and he had been already and continued to be a very dear friend to Lady Bird Johnson. I have a pretty deep interest in Lady Bird Johnson. I know that's... I think people are really interested in the presidents, and I am also. But the first ladies are also quite interesting. Those characters down through history have played incredible roles. Some with stories that we know about, but many with stories that we don't know much about. Lady Bird Johnson is from Texas, as is Lyndon Johnson. She gets her name from birth. When she was born, they said her nursemaid was holding her, and she said, she's just as pretty as a ladybird. And it stuck. And she later admitted that she did not like her nickname. She said, it causes people not to take me seriously. It's so diminutive that people dismiss me. And I hate that, because I think the name Ladybird is wonderful. What a fun, classy, yet offbeat nickname. I love that. This week I sat with my grandmother and her sister Cricket. Nan's name, I call her Nan, but her birth name is Martha. And I sat with the two of them. Nan is 98. Cricket is 94, or will be 94. She's in that bracket somewhere. And the three of us visited, had a great talk, laughed, talked about food, talked about people I don't know, all kinds of things. And I said, Cricket, I have to ask some questions. How did you get the nickname Cricket? And she immediately looked at Nan, and she said, well, I said, Nan doesn't know either. And she said, Mart? She said, you don't know? Nan said, I don't know. I've never figured it out. And Cricket said, similar to Lady Bird, she said when she was very small, someone was holding her. And she said, oh, she looks just like a cricket. Or maybe it was her grandfather was holding her and said, oh, she looks just like a little cricket. And from very, very, very young, that nickname stuck. And Cricket said, very similar to Lady Bird. She said, I don't really like the nickname because it sounds like, for a child, it sounds like something diminutive and tiny. And I said, no, I love it. I think that's a great nickname. But back to Lady Bird. She was raised, I think, in pretty significant wealth there in Texas. And when Lyndon took her out on a date, their first date, he proposed marriage to her. And she said, what do you mean? You've not met my parents. You haven't asked for my daddy's permission. You barely know me. He said, I know that I'm going places and I need somebody who's going with me. Are you in or are you out? That's gutsy. That is gutsy. And she said yes. They campaigned together. You know, Lyndon Johnson was the campaigner. I mean, this man lived, ate, breathed politics. He was, for a time, considered the master of the Senate. I think he desperately wanted to be president. He did not want to be president the way he got to be president. After the assassination of President Kennedy. But while they were, earlier in their career, while they were campaigning, I don't remember if it was presidential campaigning or Senate campaigning, either way, lots and lots and lots of travel. Bill Moyers was with them. He was part of the entourage that followed him around for journalism and so forth. And there's a story. Bill Moyers said that when, and you should know, President Johnson had a notoriously bad temper. And he said they lived upstairs in a house. Bill Moyers lived downstairs in the same house. I don't know if he was renting from them or staying with them for a time. And he said Lyndon would go into these earth-shattering rages, screaming and cursing and throwing things. He said it's the kind of fight, the kind of screaming that it makes you just hunker down and wait out the storm. He said, and it would go on and on and on, and then finally, silence. And he said the silence would settle in, and after a little while, he said the door would creak open at the top of the stairs, and Lady Bird would stick her head in, and she'd say, "You all right down there?" He said, "Me?" He said, "Are you all right up there?" And that was the kind of friendship they had. Bill Moyers was known for his Baptist faith. Lady Bird Johnson was Episcopalian. Bill Moyers told a story that when Lady Bird was on her deathbed, she was nearing the end. Bill went to see her at the hospital. And he said for years, decades, they had joked back and forth about trying to convert the other one to a particular denomination. I want you to be a Baptist. I want you to be Episcopalian. And he said, you know, in light of the circumstances here at the end, she's on her deathbed. He said, I tried to make one more joke. He said, Lady Bird, it's not too late. He said, we could still make arrangements for a baptistry, and we could get you baptized proper, get you immersed. And without missing a beat, Lady Bird said, Bill, you take all that water you need for that baptistry of yours and go water my wildflowers with it. I love that. And here's a picture. I do have this copy. This is the White House Diary, a White House Diary by Lady Bird Johnson. And this is a signed copy. Lady Bird Johnson kept an audio recording device with her while in the White House and religiously kept an audio recording of what had happened during the day. And it's very interesting because you realize this is more than just a nostalgic, oh, we had a happy day. She was recording history. I think she's absolutely phenomenal. A few years ago, there was a book that came out about her based upon that oral recording, White House Diary. And there was a phenomenal podcast that came out about her. If you go to wherever you get your podcast and just type in Lady Bird Johnson, you'll find it. I think it's from In Plain Sight. I've listened to it multiple times. It's absolutely outstanding. Where am I going with this? I get interested in people, and I think you should be interested in people too. Now, some of those people are very much in the public eye. Be interested in Bill Moyers. Be interested in Lady Bird Johnson. And I'm going to encourage you to be interested in people who are maybe not currently at the helm of something. It's fine for you to take an interest in Taylor Swift and President Trump. I think we should look at those who have a clearer picture of their life. Right now, the picture of Donald Trump is not clear. He's not dead yet. He's not gone yet. We see pieces, and we're very much clouded by our own emotion of really approving or disapproving. The same with someone like Taylor Swift. And I tell my students, they want very quickly to rush to the defense of these individuals, whoever he or she may be. And I say, remember, first and foremost, we believe as Christians, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Secondly, if I put a magnifying glass on you, would I see your sin more clearly or less clearly? Well, obviously, it would be more clear. So if we pick these public figures still living or dead, it could be that way, and somehow you have trouble pointing out the sins of that individual, is it because the sins aren't there? Or because you have somehow allowed yourself to be blinded, turning a blind eye and a deaf ear? This applies to anybody and everybody. I think when we have someone who has lived a life, the life has now ceased here on earth, we can pull the books and the papers and the interviews and the records and those sorts of things and really piece together sometimes a much clearer understanding of who he or she was. And I go back to Lady Bird for this example. When you think of Lady Bird Johnson, she's sort of dismissed, I think. She's this cute little old Texas woman. And I have to do the dialect, because as she would speak, and I'll just pick something here. This morning, I woke up to a white world, snow falling outside of our bedroom windows, so thick and white. She would drag the tail of her sentences. So white. I love that. Where was I going with that? I had a point I was about to make. Diary, all the things. See, sometimes your mind just wanders off track. It's also late on Sunday night. I don't know where I was going. I was talking about her accent. Oh, I got it. She had the name Lady Bird Johnson, and she said people tend to dismiss her because of her name. She was also a woman in a time period when women were maybe discounted, is a word I could use there, or just simply less was expected out of her in the public realm. And then the big one. You might remember the Ladybird Bill, or the word beautification. Well, that sounds so harmless. What's the First Lady all about? Oh, beautification. And you drive down the interstates today in 2025, and you see the wildflowers in the median, and you see some effort made at beautifying these very utilitarian things in America. Interstates. Interstates aren't oftentimes very beautiful. So she's encouraging, we need to trim the trees, pick up the trash, stop with the tacky billboards, plant flowers, plant flowers. But it went further. She's encouraging you in your home, plant flowers and trees and bulbs and shrubs. And you put all that together and you think it's just a sweet old woman who wanted to make America prettier. There's more to it than that. When you study Lady Bird Johnson, you understand that she was not just raising Americans up to be gardeners, to make their front yards more pretty. She was raising up citizens. Here's the approach. If I can get you to take more pride, invest more time, effort, money into your own private property, your yard, your backyard, your house front, painting the window sashes, putting on the fresh roof. If I can get you to take more of an investment in what is yours, this little postage stamp of yours, then you'll care more about what's happening from sea to shining sea. Across America, you will become more invested in your country. You will care how your tax dollars are spent. You're more likely to be a voter. You're more likely to be informed and educated on what's happening in our country. And she knew that. I believe that she had such a clear vision. It's just that she wasn't quite taken as seriously as she would have liked to have been. That's just about it for this evening. The death of Bill Moyers made me think about Bill, but it also made me think about Lady Bird Johnson. It's like when Billy Graham died, or George Herbert Walker Bush died. There are these individuals who lived during a certain time, witnessed certain events taking place, and now they're gone. Do you know the difference between the history and the past? The past is everything that's ever happened. Ever. History is what we know of it. And every single human has his or her own history. And the picture is, the past is this huge waterfall of events, people, places. And you walk up to that huge waterfall with your little Dixie cup. And all that's in your Dixie cup is your understanding of the past, and that is history. Well, this week we lost Bill Moyers from this earth, and it's between him and God, what his relationship was like with the Lord and whether or not he's in heaven. But nonetheless, his little Dixie cup is no longer available to us except in interviews and in written form and recordings and such. And so, like I mentioned, with people like Billy Graham and George Herbert Walker Bush and so forth, people of that generation, those events in that time period, I have a fair amount of respect, because I think there was a real emphasis on service and dignity. Am I saying that they were sinless? Absolutely not. Lyndon Johnson was not sinless. Lady Bird Johnson was not sinless. I really hope she's in heaven. But there was something of duty, D-U-T-Y, duty to country or to God or to family, that we lack. Nowadays, it's far more about self-actualization. I want to be who I want to be. I want to be the best me I can be. I want to be the me who is known. I want people to understand me and recognize me. And I think Lady Bird Johnson maybe cared about those things, but she cared more about bigger things. Probably Bill Moyers too. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.